You should subscribe to the Monaresclub. Because the Prince of All Saiyans told you to, idiot. Bye.
What's up, guys? Bringing you another tier list video here for Dragon Ball Super Card Game, Monaresclub, YouTube.com. This is going to be kind of the capstone to the Set 12 format tier list, because we're going into a new format. The Set 13 is going to bring a lot of new decks. We also got Battle Enhanced coming out, or it's already come out depending on when this video gets put up, but it's been delayed for a good portion of the world, so we haven't really had a ton of events with it outside of locals and whatnot, so I haven't really put any decks on this tier list using Battle Enhanced. I'll be including those decks on the Set 13 tier list, the Set 13 tier list when I make a video for that, but this will just be kind of the end cap to the current format here and where I think all of the decks currently stand. Let's just get right into it. So we've got Dark Broly, Mecha Frieza, and Red Broly in the top 3 slots here. I think this is pretty undisputed. Mecha and Dark Broly are obviously two of the strongest decks in the format. Dark Broly's pretty much been the best one for the duration of the latter half of the format. We've got Mecha Frieza, which kind of it contests the red decks here, and the red decks which kind of contest the Dark Broly leader, and that's just kind of the triangle that we're in for the rest of this format. This Red Broly isn't necessarily the best red deck. I do have 3 red decks up here in S tier. You know, King Piccolo has had some time. He's taken some events as well, taken some tops, as has Launch hasn't taken any event wins, but she is extremely well represented in the meta and has put up a lot of top cup placements, but hasn't taken home any events. So I have her up in S as well. Strictly based on representation, I think based on power level, she's closer to A tier than S tier, but considering how many people play her, she's up here for sure. Obviously, Red Broly's kind of tapered off in the last bit of the format here, but I still think he's incredibly strong. It's just there's kind of like this undecided factor on what everyone's favorite red deck is to play, whether it's Launch, King Piccolo, or Broly, but you know, so they all kind of hang in here as kind of this third spot of the metagame triangle we have here. Shenron also continues to show up. I think he hasn't taken any tops this format yet either, but he is always in a top cut. He's always getting a couple of decks through to the top cut placement, and he's always extremely well represented, and has only gotten better as each set has dropped. I think Set 13 is going to be the first set in a long time we've had without any Shenron support, direct Shenron support, that is, so we'll have to see where he ends up coming into Set 13, but for now he's definitely up in S tier. He's one of the best decks. He has the best late game paired with Invoker. Just depends on what you need to try and beat, whether it's Infinite Dragons or a bunch of Burn or a Victory Strike. And that's a nice little segue to go talk about Invoker right here. Invoker obviously has taken a number of events in the Set 12 format already, and I'm expecting it to continue to do well as we progress into next format. It's going to be a mainstay for a good while, I'm pretty sure. As long as it can keep up, it's going to be able to get some top cut placements and probably take some events as well. It has the best inevitability in the format. It's kind of the antithesis to the Red Broly deck, where the Red Broly deck you have to be able to survive against, and the Invoker deck you have to be able to kill before it can get to turn 5, essentially. It's kind of like a Mil Janemba used to be, where it kind of puts you on a timer. As soon as you see that leader in their leader area, you have to either have a counter ready for it, or you have to be able to kill it before it gets to turn 5, or it's going to kill you with, you know, absolute mercilessness. So Invoker is definitely still up here. It's performed extremely well, even for a Set 9 deck. It's held firm, and all of the best Invoker players have continued to do extremely well with it. Gohan is kind of in a weird spot because we don't get to play it in Best of 1 events, which means it gets a lot less representation in events overall, because a lot of the webcam events are only Best of 1. But all of the Best of 3 events, it usually gets at least 1 or 2 in top cut, and it's just this insane aggro powerhouse you always have to be ready for. You know, Feet Kamehameha is still insane, and this is the turn 2 murder machine. It'll murder you on turn 2 if you're not prepared. And that's kind of where I'm expecting it to keep its place in the format. I definitely think power-wise it is S tier. Like, it's banned in Best of 1 for a reason. Like, it is just that good. We just don't see it as often as we used to, just because we don't get to play it in Best of 1 anymore. But it's still extremely good in Best of 3. Going down to A tier, we could argue Baby's up in S tier based on the results that it has taken, and in fact, I'll just bump it right up here above Soul Striker here. It's definitely the best blue deck that isn't named Invoker, coming at the end of the format here. Although I think that's strictly based on a metagaming angle rather than the actual power level of the deck, because it actually pairs extremely well against the top tier, but does not nearly as well against rogue decks, which is why I kind of hesitate to put it into S tier, because most of the S tier decks can do well both against the top tier and against rogue, whereas Baby is really, really good against tier and just okay against rogue. It's just a really good counter pick for, like, Dark Broly, Red Broly, you know, all of these big fatty decks because of the access to early Trunks Heroic Prospect. But it is definitely the best blue deck in the format coming to the end of set 12, and I could definitely see an argument for it to be up in S tier. I just think, in my eyes, it's S tier when it's playing against these, but A tier and lower if it's playing against, like, the rest of the field, which is kind of a weird spot for me, so I'm just putting it at the top of A here. Soul Striker's the best overall blue deck. Obviously, you know, it has great energy management. It can splash infinite different engines. Anything you could possibly want to play, you can play Soul Striker with. It's just extremely generic and extremely powerful, and, you know, as long as blue can continue to stay competitive going forward, Soul Striker is going to have a place in the meta, especially considering it has access to such powerful unions like Baby, Dark Parasite, and all the other three cost blue unisons. Bulma is, she sneaks into top cut still. She's still around. I feel like you don't see her as much, but that's mostly because the format is just so wide open. You can see with my tier list here between S and A-, there's a ton of different decks in here. So there's just not as many people playing her, but she still has the power level to hang with the big boys, and she has some extremely good matchups across the S and A tier for sure, and she does insanely well against rogue strats too. Turles is he's kind of an oddball because he did extremely well in week 1, getting second in the first large event of week 1 of set 12 format, and then we've seen him in some top cuts, but he hasn't gotten nearly as far as second place as he has. I believe we've seen him in a couple of top 16s, top 8s, but never, like, past the first cut of the day. So he still has the power to hang. He can definitely he's, you know, really strong aggro deck with some mid-range options as well to fall back on, but he's, I feel like he's kind of gotten figured out, and we'll see where he ends up going as the format matures going into set 13. Gotenks is the same kind of deal. He did it really well in set 11, week 1, and then we didn't really see a ton of him. He still pops up, though. He still gets top cuts. It's not nearly as exciting. Like, we just kind of see him sprinkled in here, but he's got the power level to hang. He does, you know, he shows up. He never takes tournaments down, but he gets people into top cuts, and that's really all you need to ask for an A-tier deck. That same goes with Clash of Fates Goku. It's pretty much just Devin Buttersworth that's done extremely well with him, but he's proven the power level of the leader. This one and the Dredge Goku deck from set 10, I feel like they're pretty interchangeable. It's just kind of whatever flavor of milling Goku you want to play. They just do things slightly differently. Like, if the board wipe is ever better than the double strike or the better hand management, then maybe that's ends up being the better deck. But this is kind of like the de facto green drop area abuse deck, and the green drop area abuse is still extremely strong. You know, Ribrianne's great. Dormant and Roshi looping's great, you know, so it's just, this is kind of the de facto deck to be doing that with. Crossworld TCG did extremely well in a couple of events with Skelos Gohan, so I want to put Skelos Gohan up here in A. Definitely not an S tier contender by any means, but a strong rogue pick at the very least, and I think he's got A tier potential. There just needs to be more people playing him to show off his power. Vegex, he's still really good. Like, you're gonna still get free wins just from how strong your mills are, how good your aggro plan is, and the Demigra from Draftbox 6 boosted this guy immensely as well. It's definitely not an S tier deck anymore. We don't see him nearly as much as we used to, but again, he gets into top cuts and pretty consistently, and you can usually expect to see him in the room on any given day, so he's definitely still an A tier in my eyes. Dredge Goku, I already talked about with Clash of Fates Goku. These are basically the same leader to me. I just wanted to put one in A and one in A-, because I feel like having both in one tier is kind of redundant. And I think Clash of Fates has overall been proven to be the more consistent option with the extra hand management he grants you, rather than the extra burst. You're still essentially putting the same number of cards in the drop area, where this is a discard 1 from your hand and burst 2, whereas this is just a burst 3. But you get extra card filtering and extra hand management, so you get to see like your charismatic villains and stuff in your hand more often, which is pretty important. Majin Vegeta is strong. He's a strong aggro deck. I think he's just not as represented as the other aggro decks, like, you know, Broly, Launch, Gohan, you know, Vegex to an extent, Turles too. But he still can hang in there. A- tier, I guess I should clarify, is really just, these are decks that I think, personally, have the capacity to make it into top cuts, and we do see them rarely in top cuts. This is basically your rogue tier right here, whereas this would be tier 1, this is tier 2, and this is kind of rogue. These are decks that have popped up in top cuts, or I think still have the capacity to pop up in top cuts. There just aren't really anyone playing the deck and putting the time into them. So, you know, it's if there's no one in the room playing them, then they can't make it into top cuts. So that's just how it goes. But this is just a decks that I've put in based on my perceived power level of them. So the Majin Vegeta definitely has that power level going for it. It can kill you extremely quickly, and with the introduction of the tech from the Toa Ultimate deck to put Majin, the Agent of Destruction Boo, the Boo Xeno 4-drop in, has given it some extra mid-range play as well, which I think gives it that extra little oomph to get it up there. Cell is... obviously, he's got some stuff going for him in set 13. We'll have to see how Bandai handles the ban list and whatnot, or if this turn to Victory Strike nonsense is even consistent. But I'm not talking about that build of Cell. I'm talking about like the Cell with the 1-star ball Frieza chain from set 10. That deck has performed and gotten some top cuts, even in set 12 format. It's a strong aggro deck with hand control options. So it's just, I think that this deck's really strong. It just needs dedicated pilots that understand how to play it. Same with Golden Frieza. Golden Frieza's done extremely well in the hand of the dedicated pilots, and he's still got that power level, and he's still getting more tools as every set comes out. There's more Frieza's Army cards coming out all the time. There was even yellow Frieza's Army support in set 12. Like, they have like a negate on a stick now. Like, it's crazy. So Golden Frieza still can hang in there. Jiren has that great stall ability where in specific metagames, he can do extremely well. Like in the early stages of set 12 format, when people were expecting Red Broly to be doing extremely well, some people took Jiren to some top cuts because because of his survivability, where he can get that inevitability going. Your Broly opponent's going to be cutting their life to, you know, do all of their aggressive stuff. Jiren is going to survive it no matter what, and then you get to pivot around and just kill them with whatever huge boss you want to do, whether it's a Jiren boss monster or a Height of Mastery Son Goku. Both of those builds have done well. And so it's just kind of this extreme power that Jiren has on his backside that makes me say he's going to be a rogue deck pretty much as long as you can keep those Universe 11 guys around, like it's... And yellow can be a playable color. Like, it's gonna be a good deck in a lot of metas. So, I think it was Trey Faircloth has done really well with Trunks. I think Trunks has issues with representation because of access to his promos. He needs a lot of promos to do the tier version of the deck. But that version of the deck is extremely strong and has a lot of play to it. He's seen some placement. Just not a lot of representation, but I think he can do well. He's got the support. He just needs, you know, to be able to actually... You need to be able to assemble the playsets of all of the extremely expensive cards you need. So you have to be... And it's still only a rogue tier strat at best then, right? So it's like you have to have a real love for Trunks in order to be jamming him. But I think he's got the power. Zamasu, set 10 Zamasu and set 10 Vegito are both... kind of in the same boat. They've been doing the same kind of thing on their artwork here with their hand swords, which is kind of neat, but they're both in the kind of the same boat where they're blue mid-range decks, but they just have different flavor to what Soul Striker does, and all of these blue mid-range decks are very different from what Baby does. So Baby is kind of its own thing, but Soul Striker Zamasu, Vegito, these all do kind of the same thing. I've talked about this in all of my other tier list videos. They're just very similar. I think Soul Striker just edges them out slightly just because he needs a lot less specific support to work. Like, Zamasu really needs his Unison in order to work, and Vegito really needs, like, his blockers and stuff. But, these guys can hang in there, too. AOD, I don't know what happened to this deck. Like, it's still really good. It's kind of the best jack of all trades in the format, I think, where it doesn't aggro super hard, and it doesn't, like, control super hard, but it can do both of those jobs quite well. It can drop 20Ks on the board, you know, for free, that go plus when you play them. It's got good interaction with, like, Android 13, the counterplay with that, as well as the Lord Slug super combo, and, you know, just, like, the Garlic Negate's great value. This deck's solid. I think there's just not anyone playing it, like, nothing wrong with the deck, it's just if no one's playing it, it can't get tops, right? But I think it's still really strong. Definitely a strong rogue option, and always one to consider, I think. And then Skelos Goku is kind of in the same boat. It keeps getting support, which makes finding the optimal build kind of difficult. Like, we don't even know what the right color is for this guy anymore. Like, is it blue? Is it red? Probably not yellow or green, but there is the Great Saiyaman in green, I suppose. But it's probably a red or a blue deck. You can do it with, like, Janemba. You can do it with just, like, the Anniversary Box stuff, which is the way I like it. He can still hang in there. He gets a big, fat hand. He gets extremely good value. He can turn sideways really well, and he's getting even more support in Evolution Booster. So, Skelos Goku, I think people are just kind of tired of him. Like, he's been around since set 6, and he still does what he needs to do. It's just, you know, no one really plays him. Same kind of with AOD. So, I've got him in A- here. I'll talk a little bit less about B and C, because these are just kind of outliers, if I'm being honest. It's nothing wrong with these decks. Like, they're still on the tier list, so that means I can still consider them to be able to, you know, do stuff. That kind of makes them stand out from other decks that didn't quite make it on the tier list, like all of these guys. But it's just B and C tier are just kind of, this is getting kind of into kind of locals level here, and they can pop up from time to time. A- is kind of just, this is Rogue, where I think if I saw one of these in a top cut, I wouldn't be super surprised. I wouldn't expect them to be in a top cut necessarily, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them. Whereas B tier, I'd be pretty surprised to see one of these in a top cut, but that doesn't mean they can't do it. Janemba just kind of flopped. Everyone was expecting it to be kind of this great aggro powerhouse, and I haven't seen it do anything outside of the Gohan build that got top 8. I think it was the first week of set 12 format. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was using the Janemba engine. But outside of that, it hasn't really done anything. SS3 fell off really hard, too. This was considered to be kind of in line with Soul Striker and Zamasu and Vegito. It just fell off really hard. Same with the Ramp Vegeta. He's still good. There's dedicated people playing him. His game plan is solid. He's just a little peg below. That's pretty much everyone in this tier, honestly. 21 will get better with Evolution Booster. I don't know if she'll necessarily make it up to A- tier here, but she's definitely going to get some new support that'll help her. These guys are just kind of aggro decks that can turn to your opponent if, you know, they're aggro decks, you know. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. Broly might get bumped up with Evolution Booster as well. He got some good support. I'm not sure. I'm not a Broly main, so I don't know necessarily how good that support will be. We'll have to see how he performs in events. But I could definitely see him making his way up here, depending on how good that support is. The reboot of the field card didn't go as well as I expected. I thought it would make the deck better. It's definitely made the deck better. I just thought it would make it better than it did. So I still got him down in B tier. I think I had him in A tier last time, under speculation. Everything else, Toa, we haven't seen her do anything. Like, she hasn't made top cut in anything. Part of the issue might still be that people are still trying to figure out how to build her because she is extremely wide open. Like, one of the most wide open leaders on this list by a country mile. So that might be one of the issues. She can definitely hang, especially at a local level. Like, that's kind of what this B tier is at, is anything. This stuff can hang at local level for sure. You know, they can top a local any given time, but will struggle at larger events, and that's kind of what I see Toa doing. And then C tier is just, these are just kind of decks of Decks of Christmas Past, 18 mil might make its way up to B tier here. Again, this list isn't taking Evolution Booster into account, so I'll make a new tier list once we're more familiar with those cards. But yeah, that's the updated tier list, guys. That was a little bit of a longer one, so hope you stuck with me there. Let me know what you think about this list in the comments. If you think I'm wildly off base with anyone, let me know. You know, I love hearing from you guys. Make sure you hit that like button, the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.